Thursday. This is another episode of Hanging with the Xanapuks. I got Chris, Willie, myself, Zion, Andre, and with us as a guest, Kai. So, what do you want we have to talk about? Well, we had a small list of some of the topics we wanted to discuss.
Yeah. So Kai is actually a Xanapuk. That's everybody here today, has been through this trial, right? And we've all passed the test. So basically, the idea of the Xanapuks, it's a continuing idea, and we're happy to have you here today, Kai. I think today we're going to talk a little bit about the kuruk ceremony. It's something that we all share, and that is the foundation of the Xanapuks. And there's a lot of questions out that we want to try and answer some, give some of our own understandings and share some of what we've been through with people who want to know. So, Tomas, you want to narrate some of these questions for us, and we can just bounce them off?
Sure, why not?
Want to introduce off camera Tomas Jefferson.
So, why haven't we done the ceremony in approximately 70 years?
Well, I think our elder and one of the teachers that we learned from, Lori Kachora, talk about how before they went into the service in the military that funerals were done for 4 days. So I think there was an aspect, that the 4 days was still a thing. Now it's, or before it was from dusk till dawn. Now it's only for approximately, 5 hours or 3 hours, but it's dwindled down little by little the amount of time that we spend out there at funerals. But I think the kuruk was there's a misconception about it, I think, a lot, where it was the funeral that happened right after the creator passed away, but it was actually after a time had elapsed where they were missing them, so they performed this ceremony. So in doing this ceremony, there's a lot of preparation that has to be done beforehand. And now in the modern times, I think it was touched on a previous podcast that a lot of people are working, a lot of people have other obligations because of their families, children, sick family members that they have to take care of, things of that nature. And I think we found with this coronavirus that it gave us an opportunity that we might not have had otherwise, to do the ceremony, to take the time to learn about it, the history behind it, the language, and actually go through with it. So I think that's one of the main reasons why it wasn't performed in so long, is because it takes a lot of time to prepare. And I think the knowledge was not more so readily available back then, but maybe more people knew about it and how to do it. This time we relied solely on our elders, one who actually seen the ceremony and took part in it. The last one that took place in the 50s? The 50s, 52, I believe, was the year that he stated. But it's been a long time, and I think that's one of the reasons we found out why, is because of the preparation that is involved with it.
Super elaborate. If you think about it, the existence of this ceremony predated any of our modern, obligations, right? It was actually something that unified our community, because each of the families had different roles in this ceremony, and it was, I don't know whether it was done on an annual basis or I think it was as needed basis, more or less. So it could happen, once a year, or maybe potentially even more than once a year, depending on, what the families are asking. You touch on it, that it has it's a mourning ceremony, really, above all else. It's a ceremony that is meant to, honor the love that you have for your loved ones, and if there's things that you feel like are still not at rest, that this is a way to do that, to put it at rest, and to to help them in their journey. And that's basically what we were told that the ceremony represents. And so it is very somber, not something that you can just read about and try and go out and do. The old kuruks that they talk about, not the old ones, but the more modern tense ones, they talk about horses. They had people on horseback, shooting bows. That you'd have to be a pretty seasoned horse rider and archer to be able to shoot a target from a bow, or with a bow from a horse. So, I mean, Andre, you and I were the ones that were shooting bows in this ceremony. Could you imagine if we had to do it on the back of a horse?
No, not really. No, I don't think so.
So you think about that, like, Andre, what was your preparation, for that? I mean, you spent time, to make the bows and to learn, what you could about it. How much time would you say leading up to the ceremony that you spent?
I don't know. We would probably practice at least twice out of the week probably, and then again just the bows are already pre-made. But it just going back to that question, why did all these things start to fade away over time? Kind of like how you were talking about, each clan had a responsibility, and that was their job to do. And then once the knowledge of that person eventually went away, it was never passed down. And I think that's how some of these things disappear. I also heard stories from some people. They say you don't, I guess on the opposite end from where we're at, they say, you don't talk about those things, or you don't bring them up because it was meant to disappear. I've heard, like Jesse talks about some of his relatives and some of the songs or some things that they learned, and they say, "Oh, could you teach me those songs?" And I know some Quetzons back in the day, they said, "No, the song dies with me because the song belonged to my family." And I guess they some of them thought that the next generation of Quetzons weren't worthy for those things. And I think that's just the old style of thinking, because it was different from what my teacher obviously told me, because, he was kind of like one of the ones that put this, the ceremony into motion,
Sure.
And, but that was one of the things that he told me about, is that that's how they were. They say, no, this belongs to me, and it's going to go with me. I think that's also one of the reasons why it disappeared.
Probably something you have to dream too. They said that you got to be a dreamer in order to sing those songs, and
just like when we talk about Il Shah, I remember my grandma used to say that's a Escalante song. We sing that one. That was something that she used to tell me, but other people obviously sung it, but I don't like to think about that in that context anymore, because we're in a new age now, where I think something's gonna go, so we should all share it.
yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, you're by having that connection to those songs, to these ceremonies, you're tapping into an energy source that our tribe, harnessed. I mean, those songs are meant to make you feel relief, and I mean, there's tones and there's melodies and words that are being spoken in those songs that bring you their medicine, right? So it would be a shame for those things to to not be available to us, especially which it is, so much of our identity.
Right. Back to the question, I think that it's been a lot of erase to replace, and especially in the context of, sorry, I'm babbling because I don't know what to say. When I think about assimilation and how we don't do ceremonies anymore, a lot of it has to do with just having jobs and having to take care of a family. When we don't look for the land to provide for us anymore. Instead, we have to go to these companies and buy food, and we have to outsource so much instead of just food sovereignty. So we rely on the American industry to provide for us, and that means that we also have to capitulate a certain amount of time and labor to that system. And if we're working all the time, we have no time to be doing ceremony. And I think that it's awesome too that our tribal government allows time off for ceremonies, particularly burial. But I still don't think that even that's enough. But because we can do more, and we can revive more, and we can push for more. And I think that instead of having faith in the systems of power that got us here, we can dig deeper and find, what's left of what we had, and sort of manifest more from that, and build towards, healing, I guess. But yeah.
I think, what Andre and what you're talking about as well is, the adaptation of our practice, right, into modern times. And so you can see it. And I think it's important that, as Kotsans, we know that when we're going to modern ceremonies, even the ones that we're doing today, in the middle of COVID, where we're outside and it's already changed and it's already condensed into a very short time frame, from 4 days down to 4 or 5 hours, and but we're still the bundles. What those bundles represent in a older context is comes from the kuruk. The ceremony that we're doing, even the condensed version of it, is more or less originated from this ceremony that our ancestors way back were taught how to do, and what's the proper way to handle it. And it's we've all been told over and over again that it's because there's references and there's guidance, and we have elders that have experienced different aspects of it and share that with us, which we're all fortunate to have those gifts. You've got I lost my train of thought.
No, you're talking really good. I wanted to touch on that too. Like people think that we might not have been doing a full scale kuruk, but the portions we do now at the big house are kuruk. They are aspects of the original ceremony that we do, and I think a lot of people don't know that.
They don't realize that.
It's that you're just supposed to do the best that you can do with the circumstances that you're dealing with. I mean, you think back before everything that is preventing us from doing it now. I mean, there were other things. You were in the middle of battle, and you lost a Kutsan member. You had to do something for them, or bring them back. Or there's obviously times where the tribe had to accommodate circumstance, and that's what we're doing today. What we're forced to do, and I think we're doing the best that we can, and bringing this ceremony back with integrity, based on the time that was spent. I hope that we're doing our part to make sure that it doesn't get lost or left.
I want to say that's not uncommon either. We were told by our elder, and it's written in text that it typically took like a year to perform it. So it's you can't just say you want to do it and do it, even if you had the knowledge. It's there's a lot of preparation and thought that has to be put behind what you're doing. It's not something you just jump right into. Otherwise, you might hurt yourself or somebody else, as it was told. But
yeah, think about all the money that went into it too, from you guys, Mapipa, and all that. It's something that they didn't have to worry about back then. But I'm pretty sure they didn't have to think about grants or money like that to do something like that. All the stuff was around them, and
Oh, like in that book too, they said they traded 2 horses. Was it 2, 3 horses for just paint?
Yeah.
The mommies? Oh man. I'm like, I'll keep those horses. Well, I guess Quitsans didn't really think big of horses. They just wanted to eat them pretty much. And, I always thought that was interesting. Like, they didn't want to ride them; they just want to eat them.
Unless it was for kuruk, right?
Oh yeah, sorry.
how come we didn't use those for battle?
I don't know.
We're not there yet. We're not there.
Well, I was reading, I think, in I forgot what book. But it was talking about how we did learn how to ride some horses, and we're getting good at it. But the Spaniards took them away because we were getting good at it, and then when they came back, like some person who was like kind of following them, writing about them, like they just were eating them. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm interested in how the horses became involved, because from what I know is that like there weren't horses here. Well, there were, but they were extinct. They became extinct here, and then they came back through colonization. So how
Yeah,
did
so some of the original, like we before we did the ceremony, we went on this like this journey, right? And we went to a location which we were told was one of the original kuruk, sites. And at that site, there was no way that there was horses there. I mean, they didn't exist at that time, to us or whatever. And, we certainly weren't on horseback. So, you look at it's how the ceremony itself has evolved. And I think that the horses, I don't know at what time frame they came along, it's hard to guess, but they became part of, like this more elaborate ceremony. And so, like, I don't know, some family just, I guess archers were like, hey, I like to ride horses. And
yeah. And back to like him saying culture is alive. So it's kind of like just like the material conditions that happen to be there. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything is always going to change with time, from the beginning. Like, that's why, like what Zion was saying, I don't think anything that, people might have said, like, we're doing this wrong, we're doing that wrong. But I think this ceremony has always changed. Like, when you talk about the bell, that's metallic, it's metal. And then even I've heard, from what I was told, the mashquez changed over time too. And the original one, I was told there was really no mashquez, that we treated the posts as such. And that's why we take care of them with such care. And then we saw the kumyais do it, but they had little versions that they would dance with. And then we saw that and we're like, oh, we can do that even bigger and better. And we made full size, people.
Right.
I know something I was told, but I'm not sure.
I actually did read something about that, like the kamyais. They hid how to make the dolls they didn't want the Kachans to take it. But I guess that could be true. That kind of like connects the
Laurie
dots.
talked about how we helped the Kumya, I think, and that's what he said, that their dolls or their mesque, their mannequins were all small.
Yeah, they're like, I don't even think, are they like wicker or something like that? I don't know.
So I want to say, I should know this better, but I want to say there's a song in the Pipa cycle that talks about the mesque being made out of the creosote. Like bundles of it or something.
Talked about them used to make them out of that too.
Yeah. And so if that's, if what we hear about the Pipa songs that, they come from like the Imperial Valley area, that would make sense that, because there are other songs specifically in Pipa where it references kuruk, Tipai kuruk. It's, talking about it. And so it talks about the mesque and, I'm pretty sure there's a reference to the creosote. So it's interesting, to look at it. But what other questions?
Me? Well, let me just get this restarted here.
So, I like that question about, what have the people lost, in the time frame that we haven't done the ceremony. And, I think that's a lot of the reason why our teachers, wanted us to learn it, a decade ago, know these songs, know that they exist, and, why it's important. And that importance has to do with, the grieving process. That's why we have our funerals. Our funerals are meant to give us a chance to, to grieve. And, that ceremony serves a purpose along those lines. So if that ceremony is not taking place, what are we missing? Could it help? And that's kind of why, it was for us, when we did it, it did help.
Yeah, that's something like, if you do it, you're not, for someone who's like, can't get over their, like, who's someone who passed away, they can't get over it, they keep dreaming about them, they keep seeing them, like, they just mourn and mourn and mourn. So that's one of the major reasons we did the ceremony. And plus, it was the creator who died. That's when they did the ceremony, right?
Yeah, death is something really hard to deal with. But like, what's the kind of closure that they get? Why does it work? What does it do?
Uh, I think it was even just an opportunity to cry for them at that point, because now, like I said, what did we get? We get from used to get from dusk till dawn. Now it's from midnight to dawn and stuff. But I think just even the opportunity, like I said, to have the whole 4 days to mourn that specific person and just focus on that. That gives a person healing, because the time we have now to mourn people is just so fast. Even in the modern world, funerals are, an hour or two, and it's just they're done, they're gone, they're in the ground, But with us, it's a lot more thought out. The process that we used to have, this ceremony, and the fact that we don't do it, what we lost is that the not disservice, but the opportunity we don't give to the person that passed, and the opportunity we miss out on by not grieving them. But I think there was even I don't want to be wrong, but I think we used to have professional criers, even Kotans that would go out other places and cry and stuff, because I think that invokes emotion in itself. Seeing somebody else cry. I think and I heard that the way people cry today isn't the way how people used to cry. They used to cry a lot harder, used to mourn harder, whatever that may look like. I don't know, but I think that's what a lot of people today struggle with. A lot of younger generational people. How do we mourn a person that's lost? Because we're just losing so many people this day and age.
Yeah, I feel like even then, if I'm in the cry house, I sometimes think about I don't want to I can't weep, I can't mourn, because I have this optic thing of where if I'm crying then I'm weak, and and it's that's
Sure.
horrible,
Yeah.
And I think that our culture deeply ritualizes us to not face our pain and to not just kind of let it all out.
I was gonna say, some people think they can't do that, or that they might not even know that's what that's for, because they call it the big house, or or they call it's called the cry house for a reason, I think, too. But some people call it the big house, but some people don't, I think, fully get that's a place for them to let it all out. You don't have to be an immediate family member. You can just be a relative, and be on your own and do what you need to do there at a lot of time that you have. But some people don't. They hold it back, and that's the only time that they get to do it, because we don't do this ceremony like we used to, But
No, I mean everything that I think he's pretty much covered it, just from a different stance. I think just the way that I kind of hear it is, it's more like a kind of like a sickness that builds up inside of you, after that funeral, and you didn't, you feel like you weren't able to let it go, and that just dwindles inside you. And I just heard that it causes pain inside of you. It can make you, I don't know, crazy or some things. That's what from what I was taught. So that your kuruk is your second chance, I guess, to get rid of it. And I guess that thing, that whatever that sickness is, it just doesn't affect you, but it affects everyone around you in your life. It can infect even the tribe too. And I think that was one of the reasons that, you said that we needed to do that, because we're sick. Our whole tribe is sick, and we need to cleanse it. And the kuruk is how we cleanse the people, how we cleanse ourselves and the land around us too.
I always wondered if they kind of meant depression. How some people get into depression, and then once someone gets in depression, they can make another one depressed because they keep on talking about sad stuff. And
that's how I kind of view it, but I also view it kind of like how Lori talks about energies, because our emotions a bit, I think, they affect our energies and they radiate from us, I feel like, and that can be easily transferred to the next person. But they, when he was telling me about it, he just said sickness, but on a deeper level, I think what you said is pretty much what that means, or how I feel about it,
Yeah.
My mom says it's like a vibration, if you're depressed, at a time, you have a low vibration, but if you're vibrant and, full of life, then you have a high vibration, and you want to try and balance your vibration, that energy that you're putting out there. And if you have something that's constantly pulling you into a low vibration, how can you get rid of that? Well, we were taught that that's, this ceremony. So that's what we've lost is, that ability. And it's been lost, through the funerals too, because that's part of the reason why is because even those 4-day funerals or even the one-night funeral that we're used to for, the last, 20 years or something, or more, 30 years. Anyway, the smaller funerals, it's putting the pressure on to, to not.
Yeah. And I think one thing too is that like trauma does transmit generationally. So if you have like a famine, if you've gone through genocide, if your ancestors were slaves, there's this inheritance of trauma that you receive from your ancestors. And I think that all of us, deal with that. And I think it's a deep wound, but we have these ceremonies, we have these ways of healing, and I think it's really important. So, yeah.
There's studies coming out that like that now. I know my mom spoke about that before, how scientists are trying to link trauma to Native Americans, how we're born with it in our DNA and stuff automatically, just based on the history that's happened in the country as a whole. But I believe it.
Oh yeah, I do too.
So speaking about ceremony, specifically kuruk, does it lose its spiritual meaning or power because of that? Because we have these discussions about it?
I mean, some would definitely say that if it's available to everybody, that it it's what good is it? But I think with kuruk and kind of everything that we just talked about, that it's actually the opposite. Like as the ceremony becomes, what's up, Ozzy? As the ceremony becomes, available and accessible, that there's more opportunity for the community to heal. So, because this is a healing ceremony, because it's a grieving ceremony, I think that's what it's for, is to be, brought out and publicized. I mean, we heard about in the beginnings, when they would do it, that the men and the people would go and spread the word. Hey, we're going to have this. This is happening, and everyone just kind of snapped into what they needed to do.
Yeah, I think my fear in that is that like culture diffuses faster now, and like if you look at, you could go inside Ulta and buy sage. You could buy a smudge kit. And I think that when we were talking about how culture is alive, right now we live in, an economic system, capitalism, that commodifies everything. And the more that we share, the more vulnerable it can latch on to, I don't know, the arrowweeds. It could say, oh, this is the new sage. I don't know. Like it could...
For sure.
Something could happen like that. And we just have to be very mindful of like, who can obtain, and even though like the anthropologists have already came through and like written everything down, and there's no like really stone left unturned, I still think that I'm kind of scared of the new age spiritualists that come and just kind of take from all these cultures and then kind of, I don't know, like to me it's degrading to see people like just barely interact with something but take it and like, I don't know.
I think it's monetizing it when someone takes something that doesn't belong to them culturally and then tries to monetize it or does monetize on it. That's always, very degrading. But like, okay, so there was this this show that I watched, this documentary about the Chicano, movement in LA and like the beginnings of it, and how, over time, like today, modern times, they have like Chicano, communities and, groups in like Tokyo and, all over the world. And, the guys from the original, founders of this movement, they're not looking at it like, oh man, like, those guys shouldn't be doing what we're doing. Like that's ours. They're repping us. In fact, they're like, honored. They're saying, oh wow, look at, they're emulating us. And, they come from a perspective that, that's a form of flattery. Now, it's different because it's like, there's religious context to what, we practice in terms of, this ceremony and, other, uses. And so there's definitely a difference there. But, I mean, we can't be gatekeepers ourselves, because we end up, keeping it from our own people. And that's, one of the other struggles that we're having is, it's not accessible. Like, people tell us that our ceremony wasn't accessible, and you put it out there and you try and, make it inviting. And that's basically what this podcast is about, is trying to make these things accessible, and for anybody to, be able to hear it and,
not be so scared of it too. Yeah.
I think something that definitely gives the ceremony power, the ceremonies that we have in general, the fact that we get together as people, is that work what's on. It's not just the fact that the ceremony is what it is. It's the fact that work what's on, and we're descended from a specific people who did this thing. I can't. I'm not saying I can't, but it's wrong for me to go to Japan and throw on a samurai suit and call myself a samurai, or say that I'm Japanese then, or something like along those lines.
I think that's called cosplay, right?
Right.
That's a weeb.
A weeb, yeah, exactly.
Right, but I think if we talk about these things, does it lose its spiritual power? No, because at the end of the day, it's us doing it. It's us what's on people. We know the history behind it and where it came from. And if it's somebody else out there who started replicating or doing things that we do, where do they get it from? What's their history behind it? Where do they come from? They're not from that set of history. They adapted it. Like we're talking about now, the adaptations that we have today in the big house, which is not having a mesquite made out of wood, mannequin a person. We have bundles of clothes that we carry throughout the night. Adaptations. So I think those things can be looked at as a good thing. But in terms of it losing its power, no, because I think it's not only about the intentions that you have in it as a person, but the history of your people too. So
yeah, I think that especially when it comes to like the sacred aspects of it, like for me, when I think about the river and like the land and how like we have all these monoculture crops around our most important area, which is close, as close to the river, because that's essentially like a vein, a lifeline that breathes life into Yuma. And like how much spiritual power is here, because how much of the original life is here,
some people think that we don't have any power now because it's gone, or kuruk's gone, or that it should be a thing that's put away because nobody's done it in a long time. But the fact that we done it and we're still here, I think says something to the fact that there is power in it, but if you put a good thought behind it and good intentions behind it, good can come of it.
It's just sad though, like people bashed it so much that they didn't want to come, and it was a sight to see. If they came, actually experienced it, and participated, they would have seen it wasn't that bad. It was amazing, actually.
It really was. Yeah,
it was something. I think I talked about it before. Like the coyotes screaming at a certain time. Like they weren't screaming, but they're yelping and doing their calls, and then it stopped. Like at a certain time.
Like even the wind, like I said the second day, that was just so strong. And
the north wind.
The north wind, yeah. Like ceremony calls for the people to call for the wind from the north. And the fact that it was there that day really just said something to me, and it wasn't just a light breeze or anything of that nature. It was actually strong winds coming, and it, nobody can deny the fact that we called that and we asked for it and it came, things like that. And I know we all had our own personal stories that we've seen, throughout Kuruk and what made us feel like it was going right, but it was just a really good experience to have.
Yeah.
And like you said, wish more people were there to see it. Work what's on people.
In the beginning, I had a hard time remembering those parts, like in the warrior stuff. I had a hard time remembering that stuff, and all of a sudden it just came out. It just,
right.
Then I thought I was gonna get beat up by Zion.
I thought he was gonna take you too.
Yeah, man. I was kind of scared. But yeah.
Even all those guys, all those things that you guys are talking about, I kind of also think about the other aspects of it. Of, we, me and Willie have to actually learn how to make and shoot a bow.
Yeah.
We've been making war clubs, learning how to speak what's on, and also getting ready to eat a certain way, and which we talked about before is not easy. But all those things, better health, more activity.
I mean, we had to. I was to say, we had to, get up at 6 in the morning on Saturdays a few times just to get rocks, like fill up a truck bed of rocks and bring them back,
And then actually building the ramadas, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, that last day, huh?
And all of that I see as positive and self-improvement. And us as a community, we just did it with a handful of people. Imagine if we could do it with a lot more.
If there was more help on hand.
Then that's that. I feel like that's that. To me, that's that healing that that connects us all together.
Yeah.
For Kuruk.
I agree with you.
American imperialism is just to destroy everything, and just it's not sustainable, like what are we building towards, are we like, I think that we should start thinking of things in terms of like how is it going to affect, generationally, not just 4 years, like everything is so short term. We need to start thinking in ways of like
Preserving?
preserve, but also like what's able to like so it can regenerate always, come back.
So my grandma, I was talking to her the other day, and she was telling me one of the most important understandings for me to grasp, and I'll share it with you guys, is that Native people see life in a circular pattern. We see life in a circular pattern. Things come back, and that's kind of our approach. Is if we miss something, an opportunity to do something, we know, at some point it's going to come back, and at that time we'll be prepared for it, and we can do it. Whereas the other, American society or Western, ideologies is all linear. It's like you're going from point A to point B, and you have these goals and these objectives, and that it's purely linear. And so, if you think about that, for us, that's the idea of the cycle of our ceremony. The four stops. I mean, everything that we have is regenerating, and I think that's important because if you're just going from point A to point B, what's your, what do you get? Like, oh, you get a reward, or you get money or whatever. It kind of it's like it's defeating, right?
They could probably be the new Montezumas. We are kind of preserving what we can. We're trying to.
Yeah, goals preservation for me, just personal goals, just to be as culturally involved as I can be, to feel as Quetzan as I can. Because right now, I think being disassociated with culture and language, I don't. Other than saying I'm Quetzan, what can you show, what can you express that you're Quetzan? Other than having your songs, having your language, or even just knowing history, having knowledge of history is powerful in itself, about where you come from. But, sorry, I forget where I was going with that. Jumping off of what you were saying.
I'm only doing it because I don't want to see something die out.
Right.
Something that's been part of us for years. I don't want to be the last generation to fucking watch it die. And I feel like these older people, the elders right now, they're the last generation to experience the real Quetzan life. I know my grandma's experience. She lived in a cardboard box, pretty much. That's what she said. And her grandpa used to get the food, provide whatever, and they'd just have a fire in there. And
yeah, I think if a lot of indigenous people had their language and culture and songs, would be at a lot better place, spiritually, as opposed to being in the modern world, having to set goals for the year. What am I going to work this year? Where am I going to live this year? Even stuff like that. It's all kinds of things you got to worry about that were different than being as a group. In a tribe.
So how do you get that balance?
Right.
Well, I think it starts with having the ceremony, having
it's a restart.
Yeah, just providing a new outlet, because it's like, again, like this idea to erase to replace. We need to replace what they erase, with what we have,
Yeah.
And it gives them a new outlook on life and a new set of values, and those values help everyone and everything around us,
So think about this. Like, as we, are sitting here from the mud hut, looking at, the world around us, it's becoming, very obvious to, not just Quetzans, but everybody, that all these institutions and everything that we're supposed to believe in have more or less been, lying to us and, telling us what they want us to, believe or understand. So, in losing credibility in, everything that we've been taught to believe, we're fortunate to be Quetzans and be able to have something to replace that void with. I mean, that, to me, I find so much comfort in that, because if I was just, out there, every day trying to battle it and make sense of this world, like, I would be so lost. Like, and at that time when, everything, like, the rug got pulled out from the country, last year, we found, it was like we went full into Kuruk, and that was like, oh my gosh, like such a relief for me to have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so crazy too. It's for you to connect it like that too, because it's like, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, we did it because, we weren't working, but it's like, we did it because, like, it's, it's what we have. Like, we have something that's so valuable, and it's crazy that it took, like, the whole nation to stop for us to do it, but really, like, that's what we needed. And I think too, like, with the spiral, every time I would think about, when you're talking about the spiral of life, I think about it like, oh, this is so, like, this ceremony that we're doing now is just going to ripple across, and everyone's going to feel it, and, like, they're going to feel it in the past, they're going to feel it in the future, we're feeling it now. Like, it's really important, and it's really amazing to have been a part of it. And it also, like, set me on this goal of, like, food sovereignty, of wanting to establish, like, a system where we can, grow our own food and disconnect from mindless consumption. Yeah, because food is also, like, another really big problem with everyone, I think. The dependency on it, and, like, we could really just, like, as sovereign people, as a sovereign nation, I think we can do it. And I think it starts with our spirituality, with understanding our connection to food and our connection to, land and what sustains us.
Yeah, I feel like what's out there in other podcasts and, other people that are, sharing like ideas and, concepts, we're all kind of coming to that realization that, here it is, all these old ways and these old teachings have, become valuable, and, we see, that we need to implement them.
Yeah. Well, and too, it's like we're also in the face of, like, global catastrophe with climate change. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, we probably should do something now.
Yeah, they're even saying that the river's supposed to dry up or something.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Freaking extinct, but I don't know, looks pretty good. I don't know.
It was high. I was out there over the weekend. It was really high. Well, we were out there.
Mojave's giving us water, right? They're all like, yeah, let's get them some water.
Crit's got the water.
Oh yeah, Crit, huh? Yeah, that's right. Open that down a little bit.
Yeah, that's really scary, because, yeah, I don't even know what we'd do without the river. How are we Quechan without our river? It doesn't make any sense. Like, the scars of colonialism are so bad. Like, the Hoover Dam, when I think about it, it's like just millions of pounds of concrete that blocks water, and it's like, how stupid is that? Or when, like, the Mount Rushmore, like, the scar on the earth, like, Jesus Christ.
So have you done much, like, looking into the Corps of Engineers?
No.
So the Corps of Engineers is this group of, like, American, like, industrialists, right, from the government, and they went around building the Hoover Dam and, creating all these reservoirs and all these dams, and, I mean, it was like a conquering, like conquering the West, and it was like, how big can we make it? What's the, how large scale can we go? And there was, like, no considerations of, what about these fish migrations and, these, these landscapes and that are dependent on the water. I mean, when they started damming our area here, all of our, lush cottonwood forests and everything that had those deep roots that were used to having, that irrigation, natural irrigation every year, and after, a certain number of years of it changing, they were gone. I think that one big tree over there off of Ross Road, that's like one of the last like relic, remnants of how.
I used to have a real big cotton tree in the backyard. Remember that one we had in the backyard of my house? My uncle passed has a really big cotton tree in the back of his house too, but just like 3-story cottonwood, like it fell during a storm one day too. But
we had salmon too, going through the river, but we got it stink because the dam.
Well, and think what we lost. I mean, there's, the whole river of, transportation and commuting and everything that, it was used for, just vanished.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like, it's going to be hard to try and build around that because we don't have the same river that we do, and we're not going to have the same river that we do in 50 years, Yeah. So
as Quetzans, it's important to know that our river, you talk about it being, in jeopardy. It really literally is, like in like legal context, contracts. Our tribe signed what's called the forbearance agreement to give some of our water, like 10 to 15,000 acre feet, which is a lot, to the Los Angeles Metropolitan Water District. And that water source, if we don't come up with a, verifiable use, quote unquote, by a certain time, then we forbear that water. It's called a forbearance agreement. So we lose it. Basically, it's like our omission that we got more water than we could use. And, so you start thinking like, well, how can we, use that water source? I mean, obviously farming, expanding our farming and, showing, projections that that's what we're going to do. But, what about restoring a use? I mean, ecological use, environmental use, even ecotourism is a big, industry now. So if you think like, how can we hybrid, we were talking about our like traditional cultures, but like, our live, supporting our tribes. I mean, we can't just be casinos,
Yeah.
It's like so perverse. Like settler logics are so like, it's like if you're not using it, then you're wasting it, and nothing can just be, nothing can just like the water just can't go to Mexico, because you have to. It's a resource, you have to use it, or they're gonna take it. And how do we use it in a way that that brings life back, in a meaningful way? We're not just growing lettuce for the whole state or
the world.
And it's just
right.
I just wish I could see more animals around the river around here, man. I would like to see a beaver, man. That'd be fucking hard. That'd be cool. Sorry.
Yeah. I could like count on my hands the amount of times I've seen a beaver and the amount of times I've seen I don't even know its name now, but I
around here?
What is it called?
Roadrunner.
Oh.
Like how messed up is that, Like
I see those a lot.
Check out the QR code, Hanging with the Xanapuks podcast. This has been another episode of Hanging with the Xanapuks. Check us out next time.